So we established, right, like PLG going a market and into a sales motion, especially in a VC funded environment. That's also like another factor, right? Like in order to keep like hyper growth, enterprise is a very natural place to go. And if you're not venture funded or you don't have like very aggressive growth goals, then you can keep PLG and self-serve for a while. So let's assume, right, like you want to go to a sales-led motion, you want to go on market. What are the signs? How do you know when is the time you need to think about investing in a sales motion?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think like I'm a product marketer, so I don't have like the deep sort of demand gen angle of I'm sure like if you're like a demand gen expert, you can look at the number of signups and the cost of that to drive that top of funnel. You can look at the activation rate, you can look at the conversion to monetize, and you could probably figure out when the right point at which the growth rate hits some percentage, and then you can do the math. I'm not good at that stuff. This is why you guys, I work with y'all in the community. But I think like at least from an Airtable perspective, like a couple of things happened, and it's never one thing. I think in my mind, there's lots of factors that sort of drive, I think, a company decide, oh, okay, well, it looks like the signs are there that we could unlock like some sort of sales motion, right? I think first of all, I mean, some of the signs are top of funnel organic signups are sort of like flattening out, right? If you think about at least in the Airtable realm, right? And this is very specific for folks who've never used Airtable. This might be like completely random, but like Airtable really depends on building a solution. It's a tool that you have to understand. For example, the basics of database concepts, right? Like if you've ever Airtables, if you look at companies like Notion or Coda or ClickUp, I think they took from that Airtable concept, but you need someone who's willing to build. So those people, like they are, if you look at like any sort of crossing the chasm, they're like the power users, right? And so you can't, like, once you reach a certain number of those folks, it's not like you're going to be finding them like everywhere. And they have a certain mindset, and this might be true for different companies, but it takes there's nothing you can do to create more people who have that personality type in the world. Okay, so like you're gonna hit that limit. So that's one. I think second thing is like competition. So Airtable was founded started in 2012 and then kind of launched in 2014, 2015. Like Notion came along later. So if you look at this community of people, right, they're obsessed with cool new tools, and there's always going to be some competitors on your heels nipping at your ankles essentially. So you have to look at like, well, you can't no matter what, someone's going to come along and start chipping away at your bottom. Okay, that's just gonna it's impossible that it won't happen, right? Especially if you've proven success. Like there will be other competitors that will come in, and it's gonna be too difficult for you to switch your product to protect the base. I mean, you can, but it will be hard. I think self-serve revenue growth, flat or falling, that kind of connects to the previous idea. Activation rates again, and then I think these are really interesting. Like I think you would look at your largest accounts, right? From Airtable's perspective, the top accounts were already crossing like large contracts. When I mean large, I'm talking north of 100, 200, 500, a million, right? Like if you have a large account that is crossing that threshold, I mean, you can't close a $50,000 account without a human being, or even 25,000. I mean, maybe you can, but I would be very shocked if an end user could somehow push through a $50,000 contract without anyone approving it up the chain. I mean, maybe there's a few companies out there that allow that sort of purchasing power to an IC, but I would be shocked. So do you see these accounts that are already there that were opportunistic? Like you're just there like, well, why wouldn't we take the money, right? You see that sort of proof. And then, I think product market fit. Do you have the product that can actually sell into an actual account, right, and land a solution for a problem. And then and so and if you're hitting a ACV of maybe 20, 25K, I think that's like the sort of the bar. Like people ask like, well, what's like the bar to hire a rep? I think you're supposed to get to at least like 15, 20, 25K in ACV to justify the cost of a rep, right? So I don't know. Those are all things that I think we're good signs for, at least for Airtable.
Yeah. I really like what you said is like for a growth marketer, we often talk about, okay, like you reach 5 million ARR, maybe it's time to start thinking about sales led. Or, oh, you reach like 50 million ARR, you probably would want to so I've seen that talking of like 5 million, 50 million, and then that range. People say it's time for PLG companies to think about SLG. And what I really like what you said is like, okay, what are the signs other than a revenue volume, which is quite arbitrary, right? Like I've seen 5 and I've seen 50. So like the top of funnel organic competition, activation rate, self-serve revenue, and also just like the signals you get. I still remember at a certain point, like just IT teams started reaching out to us and said, oh, like just adding up all the credit card reimbursements, it's a lot, and we want a enterprise plan. Like they just like came to Slack and say, oh yeah, we need a plan, and we need to control the access to all these people with our data now. So sometimes it's like what are your customers are proactively asking for is a signal.
I would say like I would say like I have a thought about that, which is like I would add that that's a great sign of basically IT saying I need to consolidate the spend, right? And then you could argue, well, you should upgrade to our enterprise plan, and then you can use ACH, and we'll send you an invoice, and blah blah blah, like, and we'll give you SSO. That's like I call that like lazy upgrading, which is great. You kind of want it, right? But I would challenge any sort of like founder leader to say like, are you actually solving a business problem, not the end user problem, right? Like, yeah, you probably are, right? You probably are solving a business challenge, but have you thought about why? Because I think if IT is just coming to consolidate spend, I think you're at risk of being contracted because they don't understand why. They're only doing this because they don't want to. They're trying to get a discount using procurement teams to beat you up on the deal, right? Like I would say, like, are you actually driving revenue for them? Are you reducing cost? Are you mitigating risk for that company? And if the IT leader doesn't understand the strategic value of your software, then I think that's like a lazy upgrade. Sorry, I'm a lazy enterprise plan, right? Like
Yeah. That's such a great point. It reminds me of like one of my clients in no code platform, and they have individual users using it, building stuff like, the makers, the builders that you just mentioned. However, like, so they're thinking about, okay, is it time to build a sales team? And the challenge they have is, when they actually reach out to the bigger companies who have the individual users, and those companies, all they want is SSO. Like they're like, the only thing that's missing from your individual plan or self-serve plan is SSO. Like give it to us, and then we don't need anything else. So like they're in this like exploration phase. Is like what else is the value that we can add?
Yeah, so, and by the way, like Airtable was guilty of it just as much as like there's a whole website that's like SSO tax. So I don't know if you guys have seen it. It's like if you just SSO tax, it's like it lists all these companies that force you to upgrade to get SSO, and I don't know, it's like almost like a joke, but I would say like definitely think about what the value is that you're doing for like that you're providing the company, your customer, and not just convenience upgrading.
Yeah, and those value could be maybe like security, admin. What else? It's like
that is, I think that's like a like a definitely a value, So the way what I mean value is, I'll give you an example. At Airtable, when I joined, one of the first things that we did, and this was like, my CMO was also basically pushing this, which I think was a fantastic idea. We went to the data science team and we had them do a use case study. So we had them correlate Salesforce opportunity data with product use case data. So you could see which use cases led to the largest expansion. Now, that didn't take into account the folks that didn't. So it's survivorship bias, obviously, because there are a lot of accounts that never went to enterprise, and we don't know what use cases they were using, right? But we found very clear patterns for what solutions would be landing in enterprises, right? And so when I talk about value, I think if you're going to, for example, if Airtable is selling into a marketing team, right? Let's say there's like 100 users, that's 50K in ACV, okay? Are we driving campaign velocity? Are we helping produce more content better? Are we reducing the risk of marketing operations in terms of, how hard it is to launch a campaign in marketing that's integrated? Email, social, comms, analysts, sales enablement. There's some things that Airtable can do, and a lot of companies can do, but they focus on this. Like marketing teams, for example, you would need to go to the CMO and you need to explain why, if you purchase this software, I'm going to accelerate your ability to drive pipeline in the market. I'm going to reduce the cost of your tech spend by consolidating X number of tools, right? And yes, you also get the security and the administration, but that's for IT. Like, you need to check IT's box, but for a product like an Airtable, you need the champion in some function or multiple functions. And then the economic buyer is likely going to be the CIO, like at some point, right? But that's what I mean by value is, are you doing something for the company? So, I'll give one more example, which is like Airtable does really well with entertainment companies, media entertainment. Literally, like companies that do studios that produce content, they live and die by the amount of content they produce to drive subscriptions for a streaming service. And so, a product like an Airtable can accelerate the production of content for TV or movie or film, and also reduce the cost it takes to put in post-production. That's the type of thing you want to be able to take to an executive producer and show them that you can solve that problem. Not, guess what, 10 people are using my thing, 50 people are using my product. Should you just consolidate the credit card spend to a PO?
That's such a great point, like a critical point, right? It's like beyond the IT benefits and security benefits. What is the business value, the core value you're driving for the enterprise that the individual use case cannot drive, right? You can, like, Airtable faces like, okay, like multiple departments or multiple work streams can now collaborate on one product together or one project together. In like a video recording use case, yes, you can share your videos, but now if you have a shared library for all of your sales reps, and now they can do better pitching, or like the examples like this is like, what's the business benefits and enterprise use cases that we can add for a sales motion. That's a critical piece that a lot of startups is like. It sounds simple when we talk about this, but I think a lot of PLG companies are still struggling to find that business enterprise use case.